Harley-Davidson's most controversial CEO has just stepped down after years of collapsing sales, failed reinventions, and frustrated loyalists. The company is calling it a planned transition, but insiders are saying it was anything but. So what really forced Harley's top boss to walk away? When Jochen Zeitz took over Harley-Davidson back in 2020, there was a lot of hope swirling in the air. The company was struggling, sales were sluggish, and it felt like the once rebellious American icon had lost its edge. So when Zeitz, known for turning around Puma, stepped in, many believed he might just be the guy to save Harley from fading into irrelevance. He brought a sharp, no-nonsense style to the table and promised a bold new path forward. That path called the Hardwire. Now, the Hardwire wasn't your typical corporate fluff. It was a 5-year strategy aimed at cutting costs, streamlining operations, and focusing on what Harley considered its core strengths. Translation: fewer bikes, more profits. Instead of chasing every new trend or experimenting with wild new models, Zeitz decided to double down on Harley's bread and butter: heavyweight touring cruisers, trikes, and big loud bikes with even bigger price tags. At first, the move made Wall Street very happy. Investors loved the sound of build less, charge more. Share prices saw a bump. Analysts praised Zeitz for tightening the brand's focus and doing what seemed like a smart business play, cutting out the noise and squeezing more from the loyal core audience. But here's the thing: what made sense on a spreadsheet didn't always make sense in a showroom. The strategy might have earned claps in the boardroom, but out on the streets, among real riders and longtime fans, the reaction was a lot less enthusiastic. And that's where things started to unravel. Zeitz's Hardwire plan basically reshaped Harley-Davidson into a leaner, more focused machine. And in doing so, it also made the brand feel narrower, older, and oddly disconnected from reality. The company started trimming its product line, slowly eliminating anything that didn't fit the premium heavyweight vision. That included bold new projects like the Bronx, a Street Fighter-style bike aimed at urban rides and younger audiences. It also meant shelving the Custom 1250, a muscular modern cruiser that had real potential to make noise in the market. And it didn't stop there. Harley's more experimental models, ones that could have connected with fresh riders, either vanished quietly or never made it out of the development phase. Even the Pan America, Harley's ambitious venture into the adventure touring segment, got very little follow-through support after its launch. Instead of pushing innovation, Harley played it safe, sticking to their heavyweight heritage like it was a life raft. As a result, showroom floors started to feel empty, at least in terms of variety. Dealers who were once excited about new models and fresh directions were left with fewer choices to offer their customers. Entry-level bikes started disappearing, and with them went the foot traffic from first-time riders. The company may have hoped to turn Harley into a boutique premium brand, but in doing so, it accidentally boxed itself into a corner. It was now catering to a smaller, aging group of riders, while younger ones were simply walking away. Harley has always meant more than just motorcycles. It stood for freedom, rebellion, identity. But in the last few years, that emotional connection has started to fray. Under Zeitz's leadership, Harley shifted its gaze to a wealthier, older demographic. The bikes became more luxurious and more expensive, and in the process, the brand began to feel less like a movement and more like an exclusive club with a high price tag. This hit especially hard with younger riders, Gen Z and millennials, people in their 20s and 30s who were open to riding, just didn't see a place for themselves in Harley's world anymore. The entry-level bikes were either gone or pushed aside. Customization options were limited, and with most new models starting above $20,000, Harley felt financially out of reach for the average young rider. The bikes were stunning, sure, but they were also out of step with the realities of the modern market. So where did these younger riders go? They went where the value was. Brands like Royal Enfield started picking up steam by offering stylish, retro-inspired bikes like the Meteor and Classic 350 for under $7,000. Honda's Rebel 300 and 1100 became popular for offering performance, affordability, and customization without the heavy price tag. And even emerging players like CF Moto and Benelli started to fill the gaps that Harley had left behind. These other brands embraced the digital age too. You'd find them all over Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, showing off DIY builds, inner-city commutes, scenic back-road adventures. Harley still leaning on its classic chrome-drenched ads and live free, ride hard slogans that didn't quite land with the next generation. It's not that young riders weren't interested in motorcycles anymore. They just weren't interested in Harley's version of what a motorcycle should be. Before Zeitz came along with its Hardwire blueprint, Harley had another plan, a different kind of plan. Back in 2016, under then CEO Matt Levatich, Harley introduced a bold initiative called More Roads to Harley-Davidson, and honestly, it might have been the brand's best shot at long-term relevance. The More Roads plan aimed to open up the brand to a wider, more diverse audience. It promised electric bikes, small displacement models, and a wave of new motorcycle styles that would expand Harley's global reach. Levatich set a goal: 50 new models in 5 years and 100 in a decade. The strategy was about more access points, more innovation, and more appeal to the international markets. Was it ambitious? Absolutely. Maybe too ambitious. Harley was already dealing with financial pressures, rising interest rates, and a changing economy. But at least More Roads recognized the cultural shift that was happening. It acknowledged that Harley couldn't rely on nostalgia forever, and that the next generation of riders needed bikes, messaging, and price points that actually fit their lives. But when Zeitz stepped in, the axe came down hard. He shelved most of the More Roads initiative almost immediately. The LiveWire electric bike was spun off into a separate brand. Promising models like the Bronx never made it to production. International strategies were paused, and the focus returned to heavyweight cruisers, essentially reversing everything Levatich had tried to build. In hindsight, Zeitz's actions weren't just about reining in costs or simplifying the product line. They were about reshaping Harley in a very particular image: traditional, exclusive, and high-end. But that image didn't leave much room for new voices, new ideas, or new riders. And now, as Zeitz steps down and the company begins to look for its next leader, the ghost of More Roads is rising again, because Harley might need that strategy more than ever. Back in 2019, Harley-Davidson tried to do something bold. It launched its first fully electric motorcycle, the LiveWire. On paper, it looked like a groundbreaking move: a sleek, modern design, impressive performance, zero emissions. It was Harley's answer to the future. But here's the problem: Harley launched it into a market that wasn't asking for it. And even worse, they slapped a nearly $30,000 price tag on it. Now think about who Harley was really aiming for with the LiveWire. It wasn't the hardcore traditional Harley crowd, the ones who live for the rumble of a V-twin engine and the smell of gasoline. It was for younger, city-dwelling, eco-conscious riders, Gen Z, maybe some millennials. But here's where Harley completely missed the mark. The very people they wanted to attract couldn't justify spending more on an electric motorcycle than a brand new Tesla or luxury car. The LiveWire was sleek, sure, but it was also tone-deaf to its audience's style and financial reality. And for Harley's older, loyal base, the LiveWire may as well have been a betrayal. It didn't sound like a Harley. It didn't feel like a Harley. And for many, it didn't belong in the Harley universe at all. The disconnect was deep. It wasn't just a new kind of bike, it was a new identity, one that left both new and old riders scratching their heads. The financial damage was immediate. Sales dropped, dealers were left with unsold inventory collecting dust, and instead of taking the hit head-on, Harley tried to sweep it under the rug. They spun off LiveWire into its own brand, hoping some distance would solve the problem. But the damage wasn't just financial, it was emotional and cultural. Riders didn't just reject the bike, they began to wonder if Harley even understood what it stood for anymore. The LiveWire wasn't just a misfire. It widened the gap between Harley-Davidson and the very people it needed most. While the LiveWire was grabbing headlines, something far more dangerous was happening behind the scenes at Harley-Davidson. Innovation wasn't just slowing down, it was coming to a halt. Under Zeitz's Hardwire plan, the focus shifted entirely toward profitability and streamlining. Bold new projects that once held promise were quietly shelved or canceled altogether. Bikes like the Bronx, a street fighter that could have taken Harley into younger urban markets, gone. Custom 1250, which had all the makings of a modern muscle cruiser, nowhere to be seen. And what about the Pan America? Harley's long-awaited adventure touring bike actually launched to pretty solid reviews. It had potential. It gave people hope that Harley could still break into new territory. But after the initial rollout, it was left to float on its own. No real marketing push. No strong community engagement. It was like Harley gave it a quiet handshake and moved on. These lost models weren't just bikes. They were missed opportunities. Every one of them represented a shot at a broader, more diverse customer base. But instead of cultivating that future, Harley doubled down on what it already knew: touring bikes, trikes, softails, legacy models with sky-high price tags, and minimal updates. Zeitz wasn't building for tomorrow. He was protecting today's numbers. Dealers began to feel the squeeze. Without fresh models to generate excitement, foot traffic dropped. Conversations with new riders became awkward. Anything under $15K became the dreaded question. And more often than not, the answer was either no or used. Behind the polite smiles and showroom polish, there was a growing frustration, one that Harley's leadership didn't seem interested in hearing. While Harley was pulling back, others were surging ahead. Companies that used to be dismissed as niche or budget options started taking serious chunks of Harley's market share. Take Royal Enfield, for example. Once known as an old-school Indian brand with vintage charm, is now a global powerhouse. Their bikes, like the Meteor 350, Hunter, and Shotgun 650, are stylish, easy to ride, and ridiculously affordable. They took Harley's original formula, cool, simple, reliable, and made it work for today's rider. Then there's Honda. Their Rebel lineup, especially the 300 and 1100, delivered exactly what Harley was supposed to offer. Customizable cruisers with modern features, responsive handling, and a price tag that didn't make you wince. And in Honda's rising influence in the adventure market, and suddenly, they're the ones offering bikes that feel fresh and fun, without needing a second mortgage. Even brands like CF Moto and Benelli, once barely on the radar, are moving in fast. They're loading up bikes with tech like ABS, LED lighting, and TFT displays, then selling them for under $8,000. And guess what? Young riders are loving them. These companies aren't just building motorcycles, they're building communities. They're posting rides on TikTok, creating YouTube vlogs, running influencer campaigns. They're speaking the language of a new generation. Meanwhile, Harley's still stuck in the showroom, with its brochures and chrome catalogs, wondering where everyone went. It's not just about the bikes, it's about presence, engagement, relevance. While Harley keeps chasing luxury, these underdog brands are becoming the new symbols of freedom and identity for today's riders. And they're doing it by embracing everything Harley ignored. There's a reason Harley-Davidson isn't just seen as a motorcycle brand. It's seen as a lifestyle. It always stood for something bigger: rebellion, pride, brotherhood, American grit. But under Zeitz, that spirit started to feel sterile. His strategy was calculated, structured, Wall Street approved, and in the process, the soul of Harley, the raw, unfiltered passion, got left behind. Inside the company, this led to a quiet war. On one side, the strategists who wanted to modernize Harley into a sleek, global, future-facing brand. On the other, the old guard, the dealers, the employees, the lifelong riders, who felt that Harley was turning its back on what made it special. It wasn't just a business debate, it was a cultural identity crisis. That tension seeped into the dealerships too. What used to be vibrant community spaces started to feel outdated. Many reps didn't adapt. They kept pitching Harley the old way: chrome, power, heritage, to a crowd that just didn't see themselves in that vision anymore. Younger customers, especially Gen Z, walked in curious and walked out alienated. Harley wasn't speaking their language. It wasn't offering them a seat at the table. Zeitz may have won boardroom praise for tightening operations, but he was losing the heart of people who actually ride. And for a brand built on passion, that's not just bad business, it's existential. One of the biggest cracks in Harley's armor came not from a bike, but from a factory. In 2024, after celebrating a new labor deal that gave US workers a nearly 40% wage increase, Harley turned around and closed plants, shifting production of its Revolution Max engine line to Thailand. And just like that, the Made in America myth started to unravel. To the spreadsheet crowd, this looked like a win. Lower labor costs, global efficiency. What not to love? But to the workers who had just signed a deal, it felt like betrayal. And to the riders who proudly flew American flags on their Harleys, it felt like a slap in the face. This wasn't just about jobs, it was about the brand's identity. Harley had long wrapped itself in red, white, and blue. Freedom, patriotism, American steel. But this move exposed a hard truth, that behind the flag was a balance sheet. And with Trump back in office, the timing couldn't be worse. A new round on tariffs on foreign-made motorcycles could hit Harley hard, leaving it stuck with overseas production and a pricing model it can't sustain. The irony? Harley chased cost savings, but might now face a financial disaster because of it. And all while the real issue, Harley's fading connection with modern riders, remains unsolved. Because even if those bikes had been made in Milwaukee, would they have sold? Would young riders have lined up for $25,000 cruisers in a TikTok world? Probably not. If you've walked into a Harley dealership lately, you've probably heard it. That same question over and over again. Why would I spend $30,000 on a new bike when I can get a barely used one for half the price? And honestly, it's a fair question. Because right now, the used Harley market is booming. That's a huge problem for the motor company. See, Harley bikes are built to last. That's always been part of their appeal. They're solid, well-maintained machines that can go for years, decades even, without losing their performance or style. But that durability is now working against them, thanks to a flood of low-mileage, gently used Harleys hitting the market. Mostly from aging baby boomers who are hanging up their helmets. There's a massive inventory of bikes that look new, ride like new, and cost thousands less than new. For a 30-something buyer, it's not even a debate. Why would you fork over 30 grand for a brand new Road Glide when there's a mint 2017 model on Craigslist with only 5,000 miles for under 15K? That math just doesn't work in Harley's favor. And it's not just about the price, it's about value. The used models offer nearly everything the new one does, with the bonus of being broken in and without the burden of dealership markups or massive financing. Meanwhile, Harley keeps releasing updated versions of the same core models, charging more for them each year, and offering little in terms of radical innovation and tech upgrades. That strategy might look nice in a shareholder meeting, but in the real world, it's a losing battle. Harley is being outpaced by Harley. Once upon a time, they were the brand's greatest assets. Community hubs, hangouts, even destinations in themselves. But today, many of them feel stuck in a time warp. You walk in and it's like stepping into 2005. Same sales scripts, same leather and chrome aesthetic, same pitch, big bikes, big lifestyle, big prices. Here's the issue. Today's riders aren't buying that experience anymore. Younger buyers don't want to be sold a lifestyle, they want flexibility, they want honesty, they want options. And most of all, they want respect for where they are in their journey. But when they walk into a Harley dealership and ask about an entry-level bike, they either get steered toward financing a $28,000 beast they don't want, or worse, they get brushed off entirely. That outdated sales culture is pushing people away before they even throw a leg over a bike. And what makes it worse? Most dealerships are still miles behind in terms of digital integration. Want to customize a bike online? Yeah, good luck. Want to compare prices or shop modular parts in a mobile-friendly way? You're probably better off on Reddit or YouTube. Harley's competitors are investing heavily in digital retail, online configurators, virtual test rides, you name it. Meanwhile, Harley's sales culture still revolves around upselling chrome and leather jackets. To survive this next chapter, Harley has to completely rewire how its dealership operates. That means retraining staff to actually listen to customers. It means shifting focus from selling a dream to offering real, practical bikes for real people with real budgets. And above all, it means embracing transparency, accessibility, and customization, online and offline. Because if Harley can't meet new riders where they are, someone else absolutely will. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments section down below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in another one soon.